Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, television, streaming, all sorts of good things. And we're joined on this glorious Tuesday by the glorious one himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how are you doing today, sir?
John, I'm doing as well as can be. We had a citywide tragedy yesterday we're going to talk about, and I'm still mourning.
Well, and it's more than just the city. Talking about, a significant movie theater chain. We're going to be talking about that. A couple of chains under the same umbrella. We're going to be talking about that and a number of things also as well that we've got lined up here today. And we're glad you're joining us, guys. But hey, a little bit of house cleaning. I want to let you guys know about something. So I often get a lot of questions from people about, John, what gear do you use for YouTubing? What kind of camera should I have? What kind of mics? What kind of mixers? What should I do as far as streaming software? What should be my idea for a YouTube channel or a podcast and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of this stuff often comes in. Now, I am not the world's foremost expert, just to be clear. I am not the world's foremost expert on YouTube, all right? But I have taken 3 separate YouTube channels to over 200,000 subscribers each, some more than that. So I know a little something about doing YouTube, although I'm not the world's biggest expert, but a lot of you guys have asked me a lot of questions a lot of times. So tomorrow, that'll be on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, 7 p.m. New York time. We are going to be doing a live stream where the whole stream, we're just going to be talking about you getting started on YouTube. And it's be the same principles to apply to podcasting, blogging, things like that as well. And we'll go in depth, whatever it is you guys want to talk about. We'll go in depth again on lenses, cables, PCI cards, the different software you should use, how to title your videos, what should you make your YouTube channel about, or podcast, or whatever, how to bring in guests, if you want to have guests in the same room with you, if you want to have guests with you remotely, how do you get the best audio? How do you, all these sorts of things that we're going to cover. Right. Yeah. Like I said, 4 p.m. tomorrow. So if that applies to you guys, if you're one of the small segment of people that you're actually interested in this stuff and you've got questions, and you want to talk about this stuff, we will be doing that live stream tomorrow again at 4 p.m. Los Angeles time. Make sure you come on back here to the channel and join us for that. Okay, guys, here's how today's show is going to go. We break it up, of course, as always, into 2 parts. The first half of the show, we're going to go over some predetermined topics. And in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. Now, how do you get a live comment or question in on the show? It's really simple. Simply use the tip link that's down in the description of this video. You can see it there. You can just click on it, or you could enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's applicable and reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys for that support. Okay, guys, with that down, let's do some off the tops here, shall we? And the first off the top we're going to do is this. Marvel is on a significant roll right now. Not only are they getting everything up and running again, we've got Black Widow coming out. We've already had WandaVision, which was a huge global success. WandaVision was for them. We're in the midst of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and oh my God, things are picking up on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We know we've got Loki coming. We've just got the trailers for that. Plus, we've got other shows already in production, like Hawkeye, like Ms. Marvel. And now we can add another show to the list that is officially shooting and now in production. Word has now come out. It is official. She-Hulk. Disney Plus's Marvel show She-Hulk, starring Tatiana Maslany, is now officially shooting, Rob. It's no longer theoretical. It's no longer, some idea that's out there. It's actually shooting. Now, this comes to us from the folks over at Coming Soon, who write the following. The now filming listing on Georgia's official state website confirms that production on Marvel Studios' upcoming She-Hulk series has finally begun in Trilla Studios in Atlanta and is expected to shoot until August 30th. So not a terribly long shoot they've got lined up. The filming start for the Tatiana Maslany-led MCU series was previously delayed last year due to the ongoing pandemic, which of course has affected everything in the industry. This marks Marvel Studios' project that is currently in production, their third project. that is in production right now, along with Miss Marvel and Hawkeye, which are also in production, with both began shooting last year. So, Rob, we've got She-Hulk is now in production and shooting. Rob, there was a time, I remember, this was back a couple of years ago when Age of Ultron was coming out. And one of the coolest things I've ever done in my career, Marvel invited me to their big press day on the Disney lot and asked me to be the moderator for their big Age of Ultron press day. And so I got to go, and I was the one, I had the entire cast there, and I was moderating the thing. And it's the one where Robert Downey Jr. said infamously to me, the next time I'm not asked the first question, I'm fucking leaving, which was, and he said it, and it was really funny. But I remember talking to Kevin Feige before we started the event, and he was like, he looked bewildered. Like, I'm literally standing outside, and he pulls up, somebody, he has got a driver driving up in a golf cart. And I'm like, dude, you look frazzled. And he's like, we're working on this. We just had this with Ant-Man. This is around all this time was going on. We've got a new trailer that's supposed to launch in a couple of days that I'm overseeing the final cut on that. And we've got these two other things in production at the same time. And it was like, and we're trying to launch Age of Ultron. That's nothing to what they've got right now. They are currently in production. They've got Falcon Winter Soldier airing now. They got Loki coming out imminently, so they're getting ready for the launch of that. They've got 3 shows in production. They've got 2 movies in production. They've got 3 films to launch this year. I don't know how these people do it. So that part to me is absolutely insane. The way they've scaled up is, I don't think they can go any further than they are right now. I mean, it's just too much. But that said, She-Hulk is something that I never would have thought they would have done live action. I'm not a big fan of derivative characters, Rob. And She-Hulk is kind of ultimately a derivative character of Hulk. I don't love the idea of derivative characters, but I got to tell you, with the casting that's been going on, with what we've been hearing about the kind of angles they're taking, now that it's shooting, I got to say, I'm pretty excited about it. Anyway, Rob, you hear about this. Number 1, that She-Hulk is now in production. But number 2, it's while they've got, forget the movies, they've got like now 3 shows in production at the same time. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, first of all, they've got such a well-oiled machine over at Marvel. They really know what they're doing. They've had 10 years to perfect it. And I'm excited from judging from what we've received from WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier. This is some peak television. I mean, they're sparing no expense. But what I do love about this whole idea is, they've always gone back and they've always explored other genres of things. And I never thought, obviously, She-Hulk in the comics is in the legal profession. This could be their stab at a legal drama in the MCU. LA Law, The Practice, take your pick. There's been so many great legal dramas. There was a show called The Defenders early in the 60s and 70s that I used to like, that E.G. Marshall was in. I mean, I love that they're doing this. Not only that, but I see that this is their David Kelly show. Like
that's a good example. I like that.
Like a David Kelly. I'm there for it, John, because what I really have been loving about WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier is the exploration into the rest of the MCU, away from Avengers headquarters. And we're going to get more. I mean, we got a little bit of that in those Netflix shows, but they always felt self-contained as much as they kind of referred to other things. I always saw them as their own thing, whereas these Marvel shows are exploring the broader ramifications of the MCU. And I can't wait to see, what's the daily life of someone like She-Hulk? Where does she go get coffee? I don't know why that. I mean, it's just, I feel like we're going to get all that. And what's it like? Does she date? Does she go out on dates? What's it like to date She-Hulk? And I think that we might see
these are the questions. These are the deep questions that we ponder. Who's She-Hulk dating? By the way, in talking about 3 shows in production, there's going to be a 4th here very soon. We've been seeing the videos of Oscar Isaac, Rob, training, getting ready, getting in shape for Moon Knight. And you know that one's coming too. I am curious though. as you see, the level that a WandaVision was able to hit, as you see the level that Falcon and Winter Soldier is now starting to hit, does that make you nervous for Moon Knight, or does it make you more excited for something like Moon Knight?
Well, my great love of the character. My whole thing about Moon Knight is there's been different iterations of Moon Knight, different kinds. Like when I fell in love with Moon Knight, he wasn't necessarily crazy. The roots had been planted, but it was much more of a Batman-esque character that had multiple secret identities. And I always thought that was really, really cool. But if they embrace the fact that he's kind of snapped psychologically, it could be a really interesting exploration into that kind of thing. And dude, I gotta say, as these Marvel shows continue on, I mean, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, after that 4th episode, it's got 2 more episodes. How can you not be excited for these shows? Simply the diversity in their approach. And I mean, the globe trotting in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Moon Knight is a pretty contained show, more like one of the Netflix Marvel shows, New York, whatever. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
And just to see what they do.
Yeah. It is nuts when we start to ponder it. And so, guys, when you look at the extreme excellence in the world-spanning like hype that got going on WandaVision, with you seeing how like Falcon and Winter Soldier has really gotten better, especially this last episode is one of the best episodes of TV I've seen on Disney Plus. Now we've got She-Hulk, and we got lots of stuff going on. Questions for you guys. What do you think about this? She-Hulk is no longer a theory, guys. It is actually shooting. It's in front of cameras and rolling now. How do you guys feel about that? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's go off to another off the top, and that's this. Rob, this morning, a brand new trailer for the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard dropped. Now, the first Hitman's Bodyguard that came out a couple of years ago, I quite enjoyed. It wasn't great. It had some missed opportunity stuff to there. Could have been something really, really special. But at the end of the day, it was a movie I enjoyed. I liked it. Ryan Reynolds always entertains. Samuel Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson. Well, as we were saying, this morning, finally, a brand new trailer for this follow-up movie that takes place, I think, 4 to 6 years after the events of the last one. I can't remember exactly. The Hitman and Wife's Bodyguard releases their first trailer for Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. And, of course, Selma Hayek. Selma Hayek's in this thing, too. By the way, Kung Fu Hot Dog sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. So this comes to us from them. So we've got set 4 years after the events of the original Bodyguard. Michael Bryce, played by Ryan Reynolds, once again meets up with assassin Darius Kincaid, played by Samuel L. Jackson, as they embark on a new adventure to save Darius's wife, Sonia, played by Selma Hayek, from new threats. The sequel also stars, get this, Antonio Banderas, Morgan Freeman, Richard E. Grant, and Frank Grillo. That, to me, is a fantastic sounding lineup. I love the lineup. Anyway, the trailer drops this morning, and I thought the trailer was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed the trailer. It's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, but that's exactly what I want Ryan Reynolds to be. The guy is just too charming. Samuel Jackson's great. Selma Hayek looks amazing in it. It just looks funny and exciting and fun. The action of the first Hitman's Bodyguard is one of the things they nailed really well. I thought the action in the first one was very fun. And so if they can nail that and get the good humor, I'm not looking for an Oscar winner here. Just deliver what this thing promises to be. Give us a good time. And I think this trailer kind of suggests that that's what we might get. Rob, you've had a chance to check out this new trailer for The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. What did you make of it?
Well, The Hitman's Bodyguard was, to me, a huge surprise. It was one of those things I thought it was going to be kind of low rent, one of those gold Stone Entertainment movies that Lionsgate puts out. I loved it. I thought it was, is it high art? No. But I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the interplay between Sam Jackson and Ryan Reynolds. I thought Selma Hayek was great. I liked the action involved. And it was obviously a much bigger hit than they thought. It did not surprise me that they made a sequel to this movie. And like the first one, it looks like it's lavishly produced. That just the shot in the trailer where he's sitting there reading The Secret with the headphones on, and there's the mayhem behind him. That might be the easy kind of a joke, but it's hard to pull something like that off. You know what? I'm in. I think it looks exactly like what I would want from it. And how many movies can you say that about?
Tragically few.
There's one more that we're going to talk about, though, that you can.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. But the question is for you guys. Have you guys had a chance to see the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard trailer? We like it quite a bit. What did you guys think about it? Did it make you more excited for the film? Were you already excited? Do you not care about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's do one last off the top, because a couple things did drop this morning, and that last thing off the top is this. Another movie we've had our eyes on is Army of the Dead. Zack Snyder getting back to his kind of zombie kind of roots that was near the beginning of his career, getting out and stuff. The sounds of it sounds really good. The idea of combining a heist film with a zombie genre film in one of my favorite places in the world, Las Vegas. What's not to like? Now, the first trailer came out a little while ago, and I'm not going to lie, the first trailer I didn't think was great. And again, kind of reemphasizing that Netflix just ain't very good at marketing their stuff. And I just couldn't understand how a zombie heist film in Vegas, how you couldn't put together a good, compelling trailer. Because it wasn't a very good trailer. Well, they corrected that, Rob. They just came out with a new trailer for Army of the Dead. It's almost about 3 minutes long. And this trailer should have been the first trailer they came out with. This trailer was great. Because not only does this trailer for Army of the Dead give you a better sense of what is the story and going on, a little bit of a taste of the characters involved, a definite idea about what they're dealing with in the zombies at hand, and then you top it all off with the great Kenny Rogers, the gambler. You gotta know when to hold them. I'm watching this trailer. I'm like, this should have been the trailer they launched their ad campaigns with this. I mean, it's got a little bit of a, it's nowhere near as good as the Logan trailer, but I mean, it's got that flavor, right? It's got that flavor of a Logan trailer, but instead of Johnny Cash, it's Kenny Rogers. I thought it was really good. Now, the one thing that I remain a little iffy on is one of my favorite guys in Hollywood is Dave Bautista. This is one of the nicest, one of the coolest guys in the business. Full disclosure, like when we did our 24-hour marathon to raise money for the typhoon victims in the Philippines, like Dave Bautista was the first celebrity, said, "Hey, I'll jump on. I'll jump on and help you raise money for that." And he is just, every time I've had a chance, he's just one of the sweetest guys. And he's very aware. He's like, "I'm not the greatest actor in the world, man. I'm very lucky that I get to do this." But he's gotten better and better and better. I do wonder, though, Rob, I'm going to admit, I wonder if he can lead a film. Because, I watched Stuber, not so good. And then I watched that one where he was the CIA operative and he has the little girl with him. Oh my God, that was terrible. I just, as we see Dave Bautista, who's one of my favorite guys in this business, and he gets better and better, I wonder if he's now at a point that he can actually like lead a film. So that's going to be interesting to see. But that aside, this was the trailer that should have been their first trailer. This should have been everybody's first taste of this movie. This was a great trailer because we always say, Rob, the measure of a trailer does it take your excitement level, no matter if it's high or low, and bump it up a few notches? This trailer bumps your excitement for this movie up several notches. I thought it was great. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at it. What did you think?
John, I loved this trailer. And, one of my favorite horror films of all time, one of my favorite movies of all time is George Romero's original Dawn of the Dead. And I've been a zombie fan forever. And zombies are so sorry, but they're so played out, and it's like, what are they going to do? I mean, the girl with all the gifts was good. What are they going to do? Like Army of the Dead. Okay. There's a lot of dead people walking around. I get it. But this trailer revealed something to me that I did not expect. An idea of intelligent zombies. Like you had pointed out very astutely that it reminded you of I Am Legend, the Will Smith I Am Legend, which is based on Richard Matheson's novel, where yes, the in the novel, the vampires are intelligent, and the vampire has been flipped. Robert Neville's character is the one killing the vampire, so he's the villain That was the way it was in the book. But when I was watching this, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. From an intellectual standpoint, now I've got a reason to watch this. It's not just yet another zombie movie. And I have to tell you about the Dave Bautista thing. There's a shot in the trailer where he's running through a casino on the game, the poker, the roulette and poker and blackjack. He's running along the tables as the zombies are chasing him through the casino, and he's got this huge gun, and he's just blowing these zombies away. I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm so in. I'm looking at this going, this, people talk about Zack Snyder and bringing him back, restore the Snyderverse. I'm like, look, I want to see something new. And I think Zack Snyder's got a good thing going with Netflix. I'm like, how good can this movie be? They've greenlit a prequel series. They're doing an animated show. I'm like, really? After this trailer, I'm like, oh, I get it now. I mean, Zack Snyder is firmly ensconced in Netflix, doing movies for Netflix. After watching this trailer, I'm like, this trailer knows exactly what it wants to be. I think the movie probably does too. And again, I couldn't believe I liked Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It was the one movie I went into wanting to hate it. I literally went in there. I've never done this before. I wanted to hate Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, and I loved it. I was surprised. And this movie, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I watched this trailer and I'm like, give it to me. Give it to me now. I want it now, John, now.
And here's the interesting thing about this too. It does a couple of unique things. Number one, you already kind of mentioned one of the things you and I were talking off air about how this is very reminiscent of I Am Legend, where it's like,
yeah,
they become surprised. Wait a minute, these aren't just mindless things. Right. They're organized. A thing. Yes, we've seen it before in I Am Legend. We've never seen it really applied to the zombie genre before. We've never seen it here before. So that's kind of one unique kind of spin on it. The second kind of unique spin on it that I don't see anybody talking about, but I think is rather interesting, at least what we got from the trailer. The world doesn't know there's a zombie apocalypse going on.
Right.
It seemed, what I got from the trailer, and maybe the trailer's misleading, I don't know, but it seemed like they just thought that Vegas was quarantined and the money's just sitting there waiting to be taken, and they can just go in there and get it. And they seemed legitimately surprised and shocked. It's like, wait a minute, what are those things? It's like,
well, there is that news report in the beginning of the trailer, but I think people think it's contained or that it's not as big as it is.
But the soldiers looked like legitimately surprised. What? Wait, what? What is this? It's a basic in and out job. No problem, right? And that is also, listen, in a genre that has been suffocatingly predictable and boring for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Bringing in new elements like that, I think gives it another layer of, to make up a word, interestingness. It brings a new layer of interestingness to it that I kind of like. So it's going to be interesting. See, now, of course, like any movie, maybe this thing will be complete shite. Who knows? But listen, as far as the trailer goes, much better trailer than that first one. This one will get you excited. It gets the blood pumping. It's certainly did for me. Question is for you guys. What did you think about this new trailer for Army of the Dead? Maybe you think we're overhyping it. Maybe you didn't think it was all that great. I thought it was fantastic. What did you guys think? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we should make a main topic here on the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Michael Burgett. And Michael Burgett writes, "Hey, John and crew. Jordan Vogt-Roberts, director of Kong Skull Island, is set to direct a live-action version of the popular anime franchise Gundam, or Mobile Suit Gundam, for Netflix, per a report from Deadline. Legendary is also on board as well, and we have seen before how well Vogt-Roberts and Legendary have worked well in the past. What are your thoughts on this news? Thanks very much." All right, thanks for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, there has been a lot of talk over the past 13, 14, 15 years about live action versions of Gundam, live action versions of what's the other giant mecha robot anime thing?
Robotech.
Robotech, which I think Tobey Maguire was at one point attached to produce and maybe even star in. That was like 12 years ago, and nothing ever happened to that. But we've heard a lot of reports over the year of Gundam, Robotech, several of these things. Nothing really ever comes to fruition. Well, now we've got, of course, the director of Kong Skull Island, which I quite like. I like that movie. Now he's supposedly signed on to do a Mobile Suit Gundam movie for Netflix. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety, who writes, "From giant apes to giant robots, filmmaker Jordan Vogt-Roberts, Kong Skull Island, is set to direct and produce a live-action adaptation of wildly popular anime series Gundam for Legendary and Netflix," the streamer announced on Monday. Famed comic book writer Brian K. Vaughan, this is a huge part of this, which we knew about this part for a while, but Brian K. Vaughan, Y: The Last Man, amongst many other things, is writing the screenplay and will executive produce. Legendary's K.L. Boiter is overseeing the project, along with Sunrise, the Japanese animation studio behind Gundam franchise. Legendary will distribute the film theatrically in China. That, of course, comes to us from Variety. Now, of course, to me, the Jordan Vogt-Roberts part of this story is great, but it's the Brian K. Vaughan aspect that really catches your attention, because it's not just Y: The Last Man, and it's not just Saga, which is amazing, by the way, if you haven't read Saga. It's not just The Runaways, which my wife was reading Runaways long before the show ever came out. I really like the show. I mean, Brian K. Vaughan is kind of the man. He's kind of the man. So having him attached to this is pretty damn impressive. One of the kind of surprising things of this to me, though, is that something like a Gundam, that's something you picture as being a major motion picture in a theater, like not a Netflix thing. So I don't know. They haven't really said in these reports what is the budget going to be on these things. You have to believe it's got to be something significant. But anyway, Rob, you have a chance to see this. What do you think about this news, and are you hyped for an idea of a Mobile Suit Gundam live action film coming to Netflix? What do you think?
Bruh. I've been a Gundam fan since this Japanese girl, Kei Marita, moved to my hometown when I was in junior high school. And I was first introduced to Gundam by her. I love Mobile Suit Gundam. Love it. I have many Gundam models. I have many die-cast Gundam figures. The show Gundam is really, if you go by there's a main continuity of Gundam, and then there's all these offshoots and alternate universe stories and different versions, like Wing Gundam. People have seen that was the first Gundam that was brought to America and dubbed into English. I love this franchise, and at the core of this franchise is basically a message of anti-war, because it's about revolution, and it's about people that live in space, colonists that live in our solar system that want to. Well, the core story is about they want to break free. They want their independence. It's basically about a war between Earth and the Principality of Zeon, and I love it. So I can't even tell you how much I love this franchise. It's basically what Star Trek and Star Wars are to here, Gundam is to Japan. And to have this done correctly on such a grand scale. I mean, dude, I got all, let's just say, more excited than I probably should seeing the classic RX-782 mobile suit in Ready Player One. For the fleeting moments it was in there, I'm like, oh man, someone's got to do a live action Gundam movie. Now, look, it still requires great characterization. A lot of the Gundam shows live and die, like many things, with their characters. And I want to see great characters and a great story in addition to seeing mobile suits battling in space, you know. As a matter of fact, one of the great villains of the Gundam franchise is right here, Char.
Woo!
Yeah, the Red Comet. And I want to see this character in live action. Let me tell you, because I want to see the Sazabi, Xeon Gauf or something. You know, one of my favorite mobile suits. But the Red Comet piloting his Sazabi. Bring it on.
So, I mean, this is significant because I can't remember the last time a streamer was going to take on for a live action adaptation like this of something this scale, like something like a Mobile Suit Gundam. I mean, you're talking something on the scale of Transformers.
42 years, even older, 42 years of history.
Well, all that history, but just thinking visually, what this thing needs to be, right? So I don't recall this ever happening before. So I was a little bit surprised to hear about this and seeing how well it's going to turn out. It will be interesting to see what budget they set for this. That will be very, very interesting to see. Do they go 200 million or do they go 75 million? Like where do you think they're going to come in on this?
Well, first of all, if they paid $400+ million for the rights of doing 2 Knives Out movies, I'm thinking Sunrise, the Japanese company that owns Gundam, one of the problems behind doing something like this is they wanted so much money for the rights. I mean, they have to be planning as this is their franchise. This is the same way that there's Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This could be that for Netflix. This isn't like them doing Death Note or another anime adaptation. This has got to be, they've got to be thinking on a huge grand scale. So 200 million minimum. I mean, if they're going to spend 200 million for the Flower Moon movie that Scorsese's making, they have to be thinking this is $1 billion idea. I don't think the movie's going to cost $1 billion, but their investment might cap $1 billion.
But can it? I mean, so here's a question. Like, first of all, the basic idea of the story, it's a little bit like Firefly. Of course, Gundam came first, but the idea is that, okay, so it's set in the future. For those who don't know anything about Gundam, it's set in the future. Humanity has expanded out amongst the stars, and now there's kind of like this civil war fight for independence from Earth. Amongst these things, they develop these mobile suits called Gundams and blah, blah. But is Gundam a popular enough IP that it could be potentially that paradigm shifting kind of major success? Does it have? Because I know I was taking a quick glance at the live chat as we started talking about Gundam, and a lot of people are saying, I've never even heard of Gundam. Like, do you think it has that potential?
Well, we are woefully misinformed in this country about what Mobile Suit Gundam is. There's the model kits that are hugely popular, Gunpla, and they have many different formats of Gundams. But again, it's just not well known here because it was hard. It was such the crown jewel of Japan. They didn't allow a lot of it to come into the United States. A lot of people have fond memories of Wing Gundam, but it's still very limited in terms of its reach here. This movie is going to have to be great. The pressure, I mean, having Brian Vaughn and having Vogt-Roberts to direct it, at least we know he can deal with that kind of scale. But this story has got to be epic. I mean, they're going to have to make this in grand fashion. Otherwise, it'll be like every other, well, not every other, but I mean, one of my favorite manga adaptations was Edge of Tomorrow. All you need is kill, live, die, repeat. That was really well done because you had Tom Cruise in it. I mean, I think this movie is going to need marquee names playing the main characters. There's such a rich history here, but it's so dense. They really need to, I mean, this is a tall order, man, and the potential for failure is large. But I think it could be. Once people see it, this could be the kind of thing for television that people are going to be like, I can't wait. This could be a Game of Thrones type show if it's done correctly.
Well, it's a movie, right? It's a movie, not a series. Yeah.
But I think that they're going to have to think of it as a series because there's no way. The show is so sprawling in its universe, and the main storyline is set in what's called the Universal Century.
Yeah,
and there's been 12 different Universal Century shows that all detail this struggle. I mean, it's dense, man, and if they don't do it right, it's going to be a failure.
Questions,
but I'm
for
excited.
You guys.
I'm really excited.
Oh, I knew you would be. Questions for you guys. Are you excited about this? Maybe you don't care about Gundam. Maybe you're like, is that something my grandfather used to watch or what? I mean, I don't know. How do you guys feel about this news? And how do you feel about the addition of the director from Kong Skull Island? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Black Adam, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob, what do you guys think of Lucy Liu's casting for Shazam 2? Supposedly playing sisters with Helen Mirren's villain character. This cast, as well as the cast of Black Adam, has got me really excited when Zach Levi's Shazam eventually throws down against Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam." All right, thanks for sending that in. And yeah, you guys know, I more than most people, loved Shazam. I thought it was so charming and so fun and so entertaining, and I just loved it. I ate up I even love the foster parents. The two foster parents in that movie. Do a spin-off movie of them. I'll watch it. I personally think it's the second best DCEU movie, only behind The Great Man of Steel. I just like it that much. Not many people like it as much as I do, but I do like it that much. So I've been very excited about them rolling on a second one. Of course, the other day they announced that the immortal Helen Mirren was going to come on as one of the villains of the thing, which is, of course, great. But now we've got more news on one of my other favorite actresses. Lucy Liu is joining us. This comes to us from The Hollywood Reporter, who writes, "Lucy Liu, who has spent the last several years in television with such shows as Why Women Kill and Elementary, is heading to the big screen, joining the cast of New Line's big-budget DC movie Shazam! Fury of the Gods. New Line announced that Liu will play a villainess named Calypso. The character is the second daughter of Atlas, one of the titans of ancient Greece and one of the A's in Shazam, acronym of the ancient gods and heroes. The character is also the sister to Hesperia, the villain character that is being played by the already cast Helen Mirren." So we're going to have Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu playing villain sisters. I'm all about it. I've always liked Lucy Liu, like going all the way back, like not just Kill Bill and not just like Charlie's Angels. I've just always liked Lucy Liu. I've always found her really, even her earlier television work in, it was Ally McBeal she was in, right? That was Ally McBeal where I first noticed her. I loved her in that. I'm a big fan of Lucy Liu. Now, I've never watched Elementary. I know that Sean's show's been on for about 47 years. I've never watched an episode of it, but I've always wanted to watch it just because Lucy Liu is in it, and I like Sherlock Holmes. So maybe I should check that one out. But I do like the news of this very, very much. And again, pairing her and Helen Mirren together, Rob, I think is magic. I think it's absolute magic. So I'm excited about it. What do you think about the Lucy Liu casting here?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Lucy Liu. I mean, I mean, come on, she was so great in Kill Bill as Ora Onishi. I love that. I don't know. There's something about her that I've always really enjoyed. Her voice, the way she looks, the way she moves, and the fact that she's a villain in this movie. I'm sure with either superpowers or powers or something. Bring it on, dude. Like you said, Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. What an interesting pairing. I'm there for that. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's going to be able to do great with the action as well. And again, you look at this cast. First of all, I just love the original cast, and now you've added Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. This is fantastic. I mean, of course, again, like everything else, the movie might end up being completely terrible. And again, it's a lot of people, though, Rob, Black Adam, who wrote this in, a lot of people are waiting for, when are we going to hear about Black Adam? Because Black Adam just started shooting. It's now official. They are rolling cameras as we speak. That movie is being shot. We've got Shazam 2 is getting ready to go into production here shortly. When are we finally going to see Black Adam and Shazam on the screen together? I think we'll probably get a much better picture of that moving forward. The question is for you guys. What do you think about the casting of Lucy Liu as one of the villains, a sister to Helen Mirren in the new Shazam film? I think it sounds great. What do you guys think about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And this is not a happy one. This one comes to us from Jeff Bingham. And Jeff Bingham writes, "The pandemic has claimed yet another victim despite being in the recovery phase. It has just been announced that Arclight Cinemas and Pacific Theaters, which combined have over 300 screens between these two, they're owned by the same parent company, are closing down for good. I believe the hope and expectation is that someone else will take the Cinerama Dome since it is a prime theatrical staple in Hollywood, but it's disheartening news to hear nonetheless. I don't live in Hollywood, but I managed to see a movie at the Dome once in a while. Once when I visited it, I sure hope it reopens. There's no other way to... Rob, it was late yesterday afternoon. I had this news fire across my news feed that the Arclight Cinemas, which if you don't live in LA or in the LA or Southern California area, the name Arclight may not mean a lot to you. It is the theater when not going to his own that like Quentin Tarantino goes to. It is the theater that most of the Hollywood people all go to. It is like a staple of Los Angeles, the epicenter of moviegoing. It is the epicenter within the epicenter. The Arclight Theater is the movie theater in Hollywood itself. And then, of course, the iconic imagery of the Cinerama Dome, Rob. I mean, this was highlighted in Quentin Tarantino's latest movie.
Yep.
In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the opening of Entourage, the opening credits of Entourage, the opening sequence of Entourage, always focused right in on the Cinerama Dome Theater. And of course, the attached Arclight Theaters, which is one of the best movie-going experiences in LA. On top of that, they're also the same company owns the Pacific Theaters. Now, Arclight has several locations. Pacific Theater has a lot of locations. Grand total, they have over 300 screens. And like, if you're a film journalist, like, you know, I pretend to be, like 25%, like 1 out of every 4 press screenings were held at the Pacific Grove, the Grove Pacific Theater. That's where like 1 out of every 4 press screenings I've ever been to has been there. About 1 out of every, maybe like 40% of all the press screenings I've ever gone to have been at this movie theater, at the Arclight Cinemas. Like a good 70% of all of the press screening theaters are now gone. There's 300 screens. And Rob, when the news, you know, you and I got on the phone as soon as the news broke, and you and I talked about this, it shocked me. Now, it wouldn't have shocked me if 3 months ago this news came out. If this news came out 3 months ago, I wouldn't have been shocked. But now, as we seem, as the person who sent the question is suggesting, we are in this recovery phase, Godzilla versus Kong, but those theaters, the Arclights and the Pacific Theaters, never reopened. Anyway, this comes to us from the folks over at the Hollywood Reporter who write, this was not the outcome anybody wanted. This is, of course, from somebody at the company. This was not the outcome anybody wanted, but despite a huge effort that exhausted all potential options, the company does not have a viable way forward, said the statement issued by Pacific Theaters, which is owned by Decurion Corporation, which also owns Arclight. No Arclight or Pacific location has reopened since the pandemic began. On Monday afternoon, word quickly spread across Hollywood that they will remain dark for good. And according to the stories, beyond just that, it says they've already turned in the keys to the landlords of all the theaters. They've already terminated their leases. They've handed in their keys, that these things have now gone dark. I guess the amount of debt they've accumulated, they just ran out of options. And even though they're right at the precipice of things restarting, it was just too late. It was too far gone. And there was nothing else that they could do. Again, it is difficult for people who don't live in LA to understand the cultural significance of the closing of not just the Arclight, but also of Pacific Theaters as well. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. And Rob, it brings into question, here we are at the beginning of the recovery, and this is when they shut down. Are other theaters maybe in more precarious positions than we may now think? As we see stock prices rising for AMC, Regal, so we see all these stock prices rising. People are coming back to theaters, but maybe they were already past the point of no return, and maybe it's just inevitable that they close down too. Rob, I know you were almost in tears over this. This Arclight Theater is your favorite place to go see movies. It is now the latest victim of the pandemic. Your thoughts on the closing of Arclight and Pacific Theaters? How do you see this?
Well, honestly, I'm stunned. I mean, my uncle used to be president of Pacific Theaters. He's retired now, but I can't believe that this has happened, because not only what people don't understand is Pacific Theaters and the Arclight, the Pacific Theaters are in major outdoor mall complexes here, the Americana, the Grove, and these are some of the most heavily trafficked, busy places in LA. The Cinerama Theater, which is my favorite theater, I grew up, there's a Cinerama in Seattle that Paul Allen bought and refurbished. That has been closed for the last year, and it's being closed for the foreseeable future. So I've literally grown up going to the Cinerama, and moving to LA, my favorite place to go see movies was always the Cinerama. In 2015, it has a giant curved screen. They added laser projection right before The Force Awakens was showing there, because the curved screen, sometimes light from one side of the screen would shine out over the rest of the screen, so sometimes it wasn't as bright. They fixed that with the laser projection. Going in there, being under this geodesic dome, and to me it was a holy place. And then the rest of the Arclight theater chain, especially there in Hollywood, had great projection, great food. There was a great restaurant and bar there. I mean, I can't tell you, I've seen hundreds of movies there since I've lived in Los Angeles. I met Martin Landau once. I had a long conversation with him after we had both seen Apocalypse Now at a 70 millimeter screening in the Dome. I mean, I have so many memories of running into filmmakers and conversations I've had there. And, you know, I would go see virtually every major tentpole that got released. They always had preview screenings on Thursday nights, like at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. We'd go there and get dinner and drinks, and then we'd go see the movie. And I can't believe this has happened. And especially it's obviously the Arclight costs a little bit more. I'm an Arclight member. I just can't. I mean, I understand the pandemic. They haven't been able to make money, and they have a huge overhead. I get it. It's academic, but I'm really surprised that it was allowed to go this far. I mean, what about the real estate companies that own the Grove and the Americana? And I can't believe that they would have allowed this to happen, because especially in Hollywood, other than the Chinese, this was a huge, vibrant retail area right by Cahuenga. There's new housing that's gone in there. I mean, this anchored so many other businesses in the area. I can't believe it. I can't believe it, John. I'm depressed. And also, we have an Arclight 10 minutes away from here. I can walk there in Pasadena here. That's also shut down. So the two major theaters that I frequented in the city are gone. Like, gone. Where am I going to? Honestly, there's other places to go see movies, where the Burbank 16, but, you know, it's not the same.
Yeah. And look, there's a little bit of a misconception going around too. Like, some people are misunderstanding the situation, and they're saying things like, oh, you know, going into bankruptcy doesn't necessarily mean the end. That's true. Alamo Drafthouse has gone into bankruptcy, but they're not going anywhere. They've gone into, and they filed for bankruptcy protection so they can reorganize their debt, get things settled, and they're going to continue on doing business. This is not the company declaring bankruptcy. This is them saying, we are closed. We're out. We've shut the doors. We're done. We're out. This is not bankruptcy. This is them saying, we are shutting our business down. And those are two different things. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here is this, is that there is some feeling amongst people that this is some kind of the whole idea that they've already turned in their keys to their landlords and stuff like that, that this is a power move to try to negotiate better terms to keep them around. I don't think that's true. I don't think you announce to the world that we have shut down business, but that's a possibility some people are floating. The other thing is this, a lot of these theaters will probably still function as movie theaters. They will probably just be taken over by other chains. And there are many chains just in the Los Angeles area alone, and then the greater Los Angeles area, that could step in and take over these theaters, whether it's a Cinemark, or whether it's a Landmark, or whether it's an AMC, or whether it's a Regal, or whether it's another player. These theaters probably will be taken over. I just can't believe Cinerama is not going to be a movie theater anymore. It's a protected Los Angeles landmark. Somebody will come in and operate it as a theater. I believe that will happen. It's also important to keep something else in mind, that these places did not close down because there aren't people going to the movies. Oh no, these places were very profitable. They were always, this particular location is always in the top 10 busiest movie theaters in North America. This is a direct result of the pandemic. You know, I've lost count how many restaurants, some of my favorites, Rob, have been shut down permanently because of the pandemic. It wasn't because people don't go to restaurants anymore. It was because the pandemic came along and killed them. And it's unfortunate, but that's what happened here. And with Godzilla vs. Kong closing in on $400 million worldwide, people are still obviously want to go to the movies. So it's a terrible set of circumstances. Rob, what do you think is the best case scenario here? Like, I think right now, probably our best case scenario for these locations is that some other chain comes in, takes over the locations, so the locations will still be there. But one of the things I love about different movie theater chains is that every movie theater chain you go to is its own different experience.
Yes.
Like, I love the experience at AMC, but I also love when I get to go to a Regal theater. It's kind of like a different kind of movie-going experience. When I go to one of the landmark theaters that are here in Los Angeles, totally different kind of experience, more intimate and kind of relaxed. When you go to when you would go to Arclight, that whole place just felt like an airport. You know, you had the giant time boards, had the restaurants there and bars there, and then people would go in, wonderful seating arrangement for it, good distance. Like, this was one of the theaters, you guys have to get this. In any movie theater you go in, the front seat, the front row is the neckbreaker seat, right? Not in the Arclight Cinemas.
No.
In the Arclight Cinemas, the front row was still like 20 feet from the screen. I mean, every single seat was the best seat in the house. They would start off every presentation. It's a little thing, but I loved it. Before a movie would start, a staff member would come in, say, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the Arclight Theaters. You are about to watch, Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. It was directed by so-and-so. It has a running time of blah, blah, blah." If for whatever reason, they would always say, the sound or picture quality is not up to our high standards, please come out of the theater and grab one of our staff members and we will correct the problem. Please stay silent, keep your phones off, and enjoy the show. I mean, it's just little things like that made their experience unique, and I really enjoyed. Rob, what are you going to miss most about like Arclight theaters and Pacific and things like that?
Well, for me, the Arclight Cinemas were the professional movie theaters of Los Angeles. It's where all the professionals that work in the business go to see movies because, one, they don't tolerate people talking. They show 3 trailers and that's it. There's no commercials.
That's a great one too. I forgot about that. You're right. They had a rule: 3 trailers, no more. None of this 25 minutes of trailer bullshit. It was 3 trailers into the movie. I loved that.
I mean, it's very much an upscale experience, and because the cost was a little bit more, I mean, not to be elitist, but no one tolerated people talking or taking their cell phones out. And people who would do those things tended not to go to the Arclight theaters. They would go somewhere else. So there was a sense of decorum that surrounded the Arclight it was very much an upscale experience. And an upscale experience, not to be snooty or elitist, but what it did was serve the movies. If you went to an Arclight, it meant that you were a real diehard, dedicated film goer that didn't want to put up with any. I mean, you were serious about movies, and that's why, especially the Hollywood location where the Cinerama Dome was, it really did cater to the film industry. So you frequently saw stars and filmmakers, and no one bothered them because that was the environment that they fostered there. And I think, it diminishes. And even when you would go to the Pacific theaters at the Americana or at the Grove, those were also great theaters that offered great sound and projection in big auditoriums, and they cared about the movie theater experience. And I think for Los Angeles to lose what I think is their most upscale, sure, AMC did a great job with their Dolby cinemas, but still the rest of it was like, you never know if you're going to get a gaggle of teenage girls that were going to be texting during a whole movie. You didn't in the Dolby cinema, but with the Arclight, you knew that you could get great food, you could get drinks. It was very much an adult movie-going experience, and I'm going to miss it.
I'm going to miss it too. And again, like I said, we will probably see most of these locations will be taken over by other movie theaters, and they will still probably function, but it's just we lost one of those unique voices in the theater industry. That just gave us yet another unique experience. Anyway, question is for you guys. I'd be interested to know, do you live in the Southern California area or outside? And then what's your perspective on this whole thing? It's a real loss. Like, this is 300 screens of that were unique voices in the theatrical exhibition industry. I'm going to miss it. I'll tell you right now, my very first time I ever went to a movie in Los Angeles, when I came to Los Angeles for the first time, it was a special presentation screening in the Cinerama Dome of Tootsie, with a Q&A afterwards with Dustin Hoffman, the writer, the director, and the producer. All of them were there to do a Q&A of the movie afterwards. It was one of my favorite things I've ever gone to in a movie theater. That was my first experience, and now it is gone. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Jump into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Okay, guys, with that down and out of the way, let's move on now to our main topic. We just finished our main topics. Let's now move on to your comments and questions that you guys want to send in the live questions. Once again, if you want to send in a live question, simply use the tip link that's in the description of this video, or you could enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question or comment or question on the show if it's appropriate, and of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And don't forget, guys, if you were waiting for one to get answered, it might have been answered in our companion video yesterday that me and Kimberly Curran did. Make sure you go and check that out as well. Okay, let's get into your questions, shall we? And we're going to start things off here with the Wakandan Forever, who writes, I never loved Mickey. You realize that he's got 3 fingers. What am I, a bowling ball? Mrs. Doubtfire himself, Robin Williams. What is your favorite stand-up comedian? I still think Rodney Dangerfield for me. Story of my life, I get no respect. I get asked that a lot lately, Rob, about who's my favorite comedian. And look, if I'm going to be honest, I can lie to avoid an awkward situation. But notwithstanding all the drama and everything we found out about the man over the last number of years, my all-time favorite comedian my whole life was the same as Chris Rock's all-time favorite comedian, Jerry Seinfeld's all-time favorite comedian. It was Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was my number, like nobody ever touched him. No one came close. Richard Pryor, guys like that. But, you know, when you hear Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld talking about Bill Cosby, his stand-up comedy concert, Bill Cosby himself, to this day, I think is the funniest stand-up comedy concert I've ever seen. But I can't watch it again. Like, now that what we know about the man, I can't watch it again. But if I'm going to be honest, the guy who was my favorite stand-up comedian of all time was him. Now, of course, today we got a lot of great ones. Today, I still love Stephen Wright. Nobody talks about Stephen Wright anymore. The master of the deadpan one-liners. I love Stephen Wright. Chris Rock is a great stand-up comedian. Obviously, Dave Chappelle's fantastic. But, yeah, my all-time favorite was Bill Cosby. What was your all-time favorite comedian, Rob?
God, that's hard. I have to say, I'm going to go back even further because I grew up as a kid listening to Lenny Bruce.
Oh, wow.
You know, and that's why I love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel so much because he's a character in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But I love stand-up comedy, and I did love Bill Cosby, and like there's a group called the Firesign Theater, and I loved the people like that. I loved Richard Pryor, you know. And
Live on the Sunset Strip, I was way too young. To watch it on a VHS tape, but Live on the Sunset Strip is one of the first comedy concert movies I ever watched, and I still remember.
I went
it to
and
this
saw
day.
Sam Kinison. You know.
Oh wow!
I saw Sam Kinison live. Yeah, I love stand-up comedy, but that was the Bill Cosby thing was rough to deal with.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, it really
come
was.
to terms with that.
All right, next up. We go to Raj, who writes, "Hey, John, a quote. Oh, my soul, let me be in you now. Look out through my eyes. Look out at the things you made, all the shining things. The Thin Red Line is one of my favorite war movies. Its physicality was just overwhelming thoughts." The Thin Red Line, which, by the way, you had names like George Clooney. You had, there's a whole bunch of people in it. Even, who's playing Venom now again? He's playing, not Venom, he's playing
Woody Harrelson.
Carnage. Thank you. So you had guys like George Clooney, Woody Harrelson, stuff like that. The thing is, Thin Red Line, I believe it came out after movies like Platoon, movies like, what was the other big one that came out after? Full Metal Jacket. I think Thin Red Line came after that. And so some people kind of never gave it the time of day. I really like Thin Red Line myself. I know, Rob, did you ever see Thin Red Line? If so, what do you think of it when you
I have it on Blu-ray. It's a beautiful film, but like all of Terrence Malick's movies, it was I think I saw George Clooney talking about this on the Graham Norton show, how it started out being Adrian Brody's movie. I
forgot Adrian Brody was an Oscar winner. Adrian Brody. Jim Caviezel was in it too.
Star, and they basically keep Malick, and during editing cut his role down to nothing. But I don't think it's as effective as other war movies, but it certainly is beautiful and moving. But it's certainly worth watching. I mean, it's a beautifully done film.
All right, next up, we've got Suthius, who writes. And by the way, T. Benson sends in like a $20 super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, T. Benson. Appreciate that, man, very much. Thank you for the support. All right, Suthius writes, like Thor in Endgame or Bruce in the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises, we can usually tell what sort of mental state a character is in by their physical appearance. When John was introduced as the new Captain America, he was all neat and clean shaven. Steve was like this every time he donned the suit, which told me he was always ready to tackle the day until he didn't care anymore after his Civil War. Episode 4 shows John kind of grizzled with his stubble. This tells me he's had enough of it up until this point. Well, first of all, Suthius, that's a good observation, but that is not just something that's in comic book movies. Like the whole idea of filmmaking of show don't tell, a lot of times filmmakers will use the physical appearance of a character to kind of visually communicate where they are at mentally, right? That's always been a big tool of it. And yeah, they've absolutely have used that in the comic book movies. Of course, Fat Thor is one of the most obvious overt expressions of that, telling us where Thor's at mentally by his physical appearance. But that has been a tool that's been used in a lot of movies a lot of times. So yes, when we come to episode 4, and when you now see John Walker in Falcon and Winter Soldier, now he's got the stubble. He looks like not as clean, stuff like that. It expresses to us visually as the audience where this character is at mentally. And it's a standard filmmaking trick, but when you do it right, it's very, very effective. And that's a good example of how it's been effective. All right, next up, we go to Caleb, who writes, saw today that Chris Terrio almost took his name off of the theatrical cut of Justice League. Didn't know he could do that, and that only the WGA could make that decision. How does that work? Does he have to give back his salary? Please explain, John. Rob. Okay, so Rob, I am not a member of the WGA, but I have a couple of friends of mine. I won't name who, and I won't name the movie in question. I think you'll know what I'm talking about, Rob. But
probably
I have a couple of friends who are very excited about making a particular movie. They wrote it and they were going to do certain things with it. The studio, I won't even mention which studio it was, completely sabotaged what they were going to do. And my friends wanted their names taken off the movie. They ultimately did. Now, remember, I'm saying this, from a third degree perspective. I wasn't the one involved. I'm just giving you this secondhand information. And so I don't fully understand it, but they wanted to get their names taken off it. However, were they to do that, they wouldn't get the bonuses and money and residuals that would become associated with the fact that they are the credited writers. And so they were like, fine, keep our names on it. Because if you want to take your name off, that's cool. But if you're not the writer of record, then whatever bonuses, whatever incentives, whatever residuals that go towards the writer of record, you don't get that. And so they ultimately kept it on. Now, that's really my full extent of that understanding. Anyway, Rob, you're a little bit more closely connected to this sort of situation. How does that work? If a writer literally wants their name removed from credit, I got to assume they can do that if they want that. But what are the ramifications as you understand it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, would say about that. But I'm sure it can be done. Obviously, the DGA has their Alan Smithy credit, which I think they've retired. But I think, like you said, there's huge ramifications as to residuals and making money. And also, look, if the movie's so bad, this might not happen. But what if you were the creator of something and they wanted to make a sequel? I don't know how that works. Maybe contractually you'll still get your money. I would imagine you would, but maybe not. I don't know how that would work. I really don't. But now I'm curious. I want to look into that. I want to look into the WGA bylaws and find out what happens if you want your name removed.
All right. Next up, great question, Caleb. Next up, Kenna writes, I love the Wakandan scene in Friday's episode. It helps show the weight of Bucky's freedom. Contrast that with the scene in the first-ish episode where the psych was saying you're free and Bucky asked to do what? After 7 years, Bucky's still dealing with a lot. No, you're right. That juxtaposition in the show was great because you see learning he's free, joy, happiness, overwhelmed with emotion. But then we think back to episode 1 and he's like, okay, I've now been dealing with this freedom for a while. I'm free to do what? And it was just, they've done such a good job with this Bucky character in this show. Like they really have. Again, I still think maybe my favorite moment of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and the thing that tells us more about the soul of Bucky Barnes, was that scene when, he's yelling at Sam and saying, well, Cap, maybe Steve was wrong about you. And if he was wrong about you, then that means he was wrong about me. And that was so significant because to Bucky, that's the only thing that he holds on to. He doesn't believe in himself. He doesn't have a lot of sense of self-worth. He feels overwhelming guilt all the time, but the one thing he has to hold on to is that Steve Rogers believed in me. That's it.
Yeah.
And so you could hear as Sebastian Stan was saying that line, you could hear the emotion breaking in his voice. And if Steve was wrong about you, that means he was wrong about me. And it's like, this tidal wave, like the meaning of that was so powerful to me watching that as a character. I thought that was brilliant. Anyway, how have you felt about the way they've handled Bucky in this series so far?
Dude, I think it's great. You're watching a transition. I'm curious as how they're going to get back to that because he was clearly haunted and he has his list of people that he had to atone to. And I'm wondering that if this experience, is he going to come clean at the end about killing that man's son, his friend's son, and how is this going to change Bucky? I mean, we're seeing a real arc in his character. And I think in the sense that the whole situation about what's Steve Rogers' legacy, he is that legacy. So is Sam. And that's what this really is all about. What is the legacy of Captain America? What does it mean to them personally? What does it mean to the country? What does it mean to the Avengers? What does it mean to the world? And I think we saw at the end of the last episode, it's irrevocably been tarnished by what happened on social media. I can't even imagine where this is going to go in episode 5, but someplace pretty damn dark. So how are they going to restore that luster? Are they going to spend the rest of their lives, trying to live up to the ideals that Steve Rogers set for not only them, but the world? I mean, this is why the show, John, resonates with me because it's about so many different things, not your typical comic book movie fare. As much as I like the MCU, this show is really going places that have surprised me. First and foremost, being at the end of seeing that bloody shield in
so
John
powerful.
Walker's hands, dude.
So powerful. By the way, Insomniac sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Insomniac. Appreciate that, man. All right. Next up, we've got Kenna, who also writes in, hey, John, speaking of the Dora Milaje, knowing that they're trained to protect a king who at some point in time had the powers of the Black Panther, they're trained to take down superpowered enemies. Well, I mean, that's fine and everything. You can say you're trained to take down superpowered enemies. That's great. What is a superpowered enemy? And you're still, at the end of the day, just a human being. Like, I don't care how much you train to take down Thanos. You're going to die. I don't care how much you train to take down, I don't know, Loki. If you're a regular human being, you're going to die. So, I mean, that's true. But listen, the Dora Milaje. Rob, I put this up on Twitter yesterday. Looking back at that saying, when John Walker says to Io, you don't have jurisdiction here. And she says, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? That was awesome. I put up on Twitter last night that I accidentally pulled out my headphone jack there. I put up on Twitter last night. I said, "Is it weird that I want to get that tattooed on me somewhere?" Just the way she said that the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be. Like, that is like, sit down, Junior. I loved it. I totally did. Okay, anyway, next up. The Wakanda Forever writes, "Hey, John, I know you play guitar and used to play in bands. Did you ever seriously think about pursuing music for a living?" I did. Paid gigs, clubs, or make an album, that sort of thing. P.S. If you can play one venue in your life, what would you want it to be? Well, listen, I did. I very seriously considered, do I try to pursue music as a career? Right up till I was like 19 or 20. I seriously thought about that. We recorded, one of my bands could record an album. We did a lot of recording. I did play a number of paid gigs, things like that. And it was around 19 or 20 that I realized I had to make a decision if I was really going to go for it. And I had to have a very honest conversation with myself. And I don't regret it. It was a very accurate, honest conversation with myself. And that honest, accurate conversation with myself was, you're not good enough. And I'm okay with that. Like, I was pretty good. But I did not, when I would look around at some of my other friends and people I knew, and I just saw their talent levels for this stuff were well beyond mine. And I just realized, and again, and I'm sure everybody who grows up and dreams of being a professional football player or whatever, 99 out of 100 at some point have to have that conversation. I'm not quite good enough to actually be able to go to that level. And while I loved music and I continue to love music and I still pick up my guitar and play piano and stuff like that, I just realized I'm not good enough to actually make it doing this. I'm not that good. I just really love it. I just really enjoy it. So yeah, that was it. And I think almost everybody at some point has to have that conversation with themselves. And I had to have that conversation with myself that, hey, I love doing this, but I am not good enough at this. I don't have that special level of talent that a lot of other people do. And so it just became something I really enjoyed for the rest of my life, but never a career. Anyway, thanks for asking that, man. Okay. Next up, we got, I Look Like Wyatt Russell writes, John, big fan here. Thank you, dude. Did you notice that the guy John Walker killed said he was a major fan of Captain America? We talked about that several times already. Yeah. Just imagine that gut punch to know you were killed by your idol as a kid. When we were doing the open spoiler discussion, part 1 of this recent episode, I totally missed that, but somebody in the live chat brought it up and like, oh my God, yeah. That guy was just talking to Carly about how Captain America was his hero. And that shield means something. And then he's murdered by that shield. And the final shot is his blood on the shield. Powerful, powerful stuff, man. Powerful, powerful stuff. All right, next up. My theory is right. John, you've heard it here first. All those crazy WandaVision fan theorists are now going to theorize that Wolverine is the power broker. He took the serum in Logan, so he wants more serum. Wolverine's the power broker. I just solved the case. Well, Rob, I'll tell you this. I don't hear anybody saying Wolverine is the power broker, but I didn't hear the crazy X-Men are coming into Falcon and Winter Soldier theories after the first episode. It's like, okay, we've all learned our lesson.
Right.
And then I didn't hear any X-Men are coming into Falcon and Winter Soldier theories after the second episode. I'm like, okay, we all learned our lesson. But Rob, since episode 3 and after episode 4, I am starting to see a few, and we're going to see this X-Men character pop. We're starting to see that again. I feel very confident, although I do not know for sure, but I think I feel fairly safe in saying, no, we are not going to see X-Men characters in this. Rob, where are you on that right now?
Well, I too was joking because, Madripoor was a big location in the Wolverine comic book. So I figured, that would make sense. Clearly, they're name checking. They have Madripoor in there to draw that connection. It's definitely a big city in the Marvel universe, the comic universe. But I don't think that they would introduce a character like Wolverine in this way. Too big of a character.
What about a minor X-Men character? Do you think that do you think they could be, and when I say minor character, I mean one that is still definitively identified as an X-Man character. Do you think they'd even do that in here? I don't think so, but do you think they could do that?
I don't think so either, because then that would overshadow the series as a whole. Then that's all anybody would talk about. I think that I mean, maybe Sharon Carter gets revealed to be the power broker. I don't know. I mean,
I'm still on that, by the way. Like, listen, people hear me say that, if you had to guess who the power broker is right now, my guess is Sharon Carter. There are several pieces of information that would suggest otherwise, but I don't really think Sharon Carter's the power broker. It's just that I have yet to hear a better theory. That's the only thing. I'm saying out of all the bad theories we have and that we've heard, Sharon Carter as power broker is still a bad theory, but it's the least bad of the bad theories. You know what I mean? I don't know. Have you heard a theory that's better than the Sharon Carter one right now?
Not really. I mean, everybody's been talking about the power broker is a character in the comics, but not one that we would recognize. So I don't know. Maybe we'll never see the power broker and they'll leave that for another day.
All right. Next up, we've got Optimus Prime Rib, who writes, I'm writing it, or I'm willing it into existence. This is the year of the lovable losers. Your Maple Leafs and my Clippers will make history. What better way to celebrate 2021 after such a tough year of many? Well, I hate to break it to you, Optimus Prime Rib. I doubt both. I do not think that this Leafs team is the best Leaf team in decades, but I just don't see them being built for the grueling NHL playoffs. I don't see them being built to withstand the playoffs and get to the Stanley Cup. So there's that. Clippers aren't getting out of the West. I'm sorry, but I don't even think they would be in my top 3 picks to make it out of the West. Honestly, I think they can't beat the Jazz. I think you put them in a series against the Jazz, they can't beat them. I certainly don't think they can beat the Lakers at full strength, like once AD and LeBron and everything are back. I mean, hell, yeah. So I don't know. I always down deep kind of root for the Clippers, and I'm obviously a huge Leafs fan, but I don't think it's going to happen for either of us this year, dude. I hope I'm wrong. I totally hope I'm wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen for us this year. All right. Next up, Jay Bling writes, watching your Gladiator recap reminded me of Hans Zimmer's track Elysium, which plays when Maximus dies. If I save the world or universe but end up mortally wounded in the process, I want that track to play in the background as I die. Thanks for bringing that up, Jay Bling. And Rob, I just did this Movies in 20 video about Gladiator, but I am telling you, dude, out of all the badass things in that movie, so many badass things, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next, or whatever it is, right? To me, there's something chest thumping about when the senator walks up to, Russell Crowe's now died, and the senator walks up to him in the middle of the Coliseum, and he just says, who shall help me carry his body?
Derek Jacobi.
And then all like the Gladiators and Quintus and all these guys step forward. They lift up Maximus's body and carry for the ring as they leave Caesar's body to rot in the sun. I'm just like, that image that Ridley Scott composed for us to enjoy, one of my favorite moments. And that music is such a key part. Like, what do you think of when you think back to the music of Gladiator?
Oh my God. And Lisa Gerrard from Dead Can Dance doing her wailing over that stuff. I mean, I love that score. I love that film. As a matter of fact, it's supposed to be delivered today, a third-party Maximus figure, 12-inch Maximus.
Ooh, that's right. You told me about that. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, it was supposed to come yesterday, but like UPS wants a signature. I'm like, I was on your show when they tried to deliver it.
Oh,
like, come on, guys, just leave it at the damn door, would you?
All right. I can't wait to see that one. All right, next up, Wakanda Forever writes, woo, WrestleMania is about to start. This, of course, was on Sunday. Start, John. What's your favorite WrestleMania match? Mine growing up, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 6. 2-night event. It's boss time. Have fun. I write in when it's all over to get your thoughts. The reality, honestly, I used to watch wrestling a lot when I was a kid. I will still watch wrestling once in a while, but I will always watch WrestleMania. I will always watch WrestleMania, and one of the, like, whether it's Royal Rumble or SummerSlam, I'll watch one or two of the other major ones, though. I did not watch WrestleMania this year. Not because I didn't want to, but because Saturday I was out of town. So Saturday I couldn't watch the first part of WrestleMania. And then Sunday, totally planned on watching WrestleMania. But then in the morning, I got this unexpected text message from Cody Miller, who I haven't, because of COVID and everything, he lives in Indiana. I haven't seen him in over a year. And he was like, hey, I'm flying into Los Angeles right now for a photo shoot and I'm free after 2 p.m. Do you want to hang out? And I was like, well, I'm not going to not hang out with Cody. And so I just didn't watch WrestleMania. Now, as far as my all-time favorite WrestleMania match, it probably still has to be, and I can't remember if it was WrestleMania 3, but it's the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Randy Macho Man Savage, which is one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. I definitely put it in top 5. Randy the Macho Man Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, one of the all-time greatest matches, and probably my favorite WrestleMania one. That's probably my favorite WrestleMania one. All right, next up, we go to Darklock63, who writes, one of 3. Greetings. If Walker had executed the combatant without witnesses, the government could have covered it up. However, executing a surrendering combatant is a criminal act, and soldiers have been brought up on charges for doing such. Some acquitted, others found guilty. This being fiction, they may well give him a pass. As much as we may sympathize with Walker, there are rules of engagement he has to follow in public anyway. It also shows that we are not worthy of the shield either. SFC Reese, U.S. Army, retired. Thank you so much, Dark Lock, for sending that in. And you're absolutely right. You are 100% right. But as you also point out, one's reality, one is this fictitious world of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. One of the big questions that's going is, okay, what is now the fallout of what just happened at the end of the last episode? And my theory is this, and it's only fan speculation. I don't know that this is what they're going to do. I think the U.S. government is going to back John Walker. I think they're going to spin it as John Walker brought to justice an international terrorist who blew up, a building with civilians in it and just murdered one of our U.S. federal agents, of course, Battlestar, and he brought him to justice after a fierce life and death battle. Yeah, I think they're going to back him, which is only going to embolden him. Now, maybe they go the other way, and they should go the other way. But I don't know. I just have a feeling that that's what they're going to do. But I don't know. It's 60-40 to me right now. Rob, which way do you think that whole issue is going to go? Are they going to revoke him as Captain America, or are they going to back him on it? I mean, how do you see this playing out?
No, I think they're going to back him on it, because that's this whole show is really about shades of gray. And the fact is, it's not like he's some murderer. I mean, he is now, but Battlestar was killed, and these people have been killing civilians. We saw Carly or whatever, when they blew up that building, there were hostages they had put in there, and they blew that building up, killing innocents. So, and then they killed Battlestar. They killed an American soldier was killed. And I think they can easily spin it that way. And the thing is, what it makes Walker then have to deal with what he knows was wrong.
Right. I mean, if he cares anymore now that the serum's in him, maybe he doesn't care. Maybe because like at the end of that, as he's standing there with the shield and the blood on it, he looked proud. Like he didn't look ashamed. When people pointing cameras, he didn't look worried. He's like, damn right, I just killed this fool.
He took vengeance on, they probably had saved one another's lives countless times when they were deployed in places like Afghanistan. Who knew what was going on during the past 5 years during the blip, and they were compatriots. They were warriors together. There's a warrior code. He was killed, and John Walker's like, these guys, enough of them.
Yep, they're gonna pay, and he killed one of them. All right, next up, Caleb writes, John, I think I've figured out the holy tetralogy of the most underrated actors working today. Danny Houston, fantastic. Jesse Plemons, fantastic. Ben Foster, maybe the best of the bunch. And Rufus Sewell, they all always deliver but are overshadowed. What do you think of them, and who is your favorite of these? Well, these are all basically character actors. None of them are like the leading men. They're all character actors, but they're all fantastic. When I think of Danny Houston, Rob, I want to play this game with you on this. We're going to play movie association, all right? I'll go first, and then I want to you. When I think of Danny Houston, maybe not his best one, maybe not the most popular one, I will always think of 30 Days of Night, as he played one of the vampires in 30 Days of Night. I loved him in that.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Jesse Plemons, and I might even be wrong. I might be getting this wrong, but Jesse Plemons as the neighbor in Game Night. It's like, Game Night? I'm like, yeah, I loved him as that neighbor in Game Night. Ben Foster might be the best actor in the world today who is not considered A-list, who's not considered one of the top actors. You know what I mean? Maybe the most underrated actor in the business. This guy, the movie I think of him whenever I think of Ben Foster is 3:10 to Yuma. This is a movie that he was starring in alongside Russell Crowe and Christian Bale, two of the greatest actors in the world, and to me, he stood them both up. He upstaged both of them in that. I thought he was incredible. So that's what I think of when I think of Ben Foster. Rufus Sewell, always the creepy villain guy. I usually go back to A Knight's Tale with Rufus Sewell. So that's my movie association. Rob, what about you? Let's start off with the first one. Danny Houston.
Danny, you know what? This is going to seem crazy, but Children of Men. Because he plays this really wealthy guy who's saving all the world's great artworks, and no, he's not crazy, but he's very upscale, and he seems like he's the one man that's trying to retain civilization, kind of a thing.
Right. Okay. So, let's move on to Jesse Plemons. What do you think of when you think of Jesse Plemons?
Dude, Friday Night Lights.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. I should have known you'd say Friday Night Lights. There's nothing else. What can I say? All
right.
What about Ben Foster?
Hell or High Water.
Yeah. So good.
Hell or High Water. I loved him that. But then I can't say that I don't think of him as Angel in X-Men 3.
Well, yeah, of course.
Not good.
And by the way, Ben Foster, I was mentioning Danny Houston, 30 Days a Night. Ben Foster was also in 30 Days a Night, so a little bit of a 30 Days a Night comparison there. All right, well, let's move on to that last one there. Rufus Sewell.
Dark City.
Oh, yeah.
Dark City. I mean, I love Dark City, and he's great in it. So... yeah.
There you go. So that's a good one, Caleb. That's a good one. All right, we move on now. We go to Not Kevin Feige writes, John, I agree with you 100%. That's not the point. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. Ooh, people misuse the word hypocrisy so much. Anyway, yes, one is a family character and the other is more adult, but ultimately this is a family film. Besides, Pepe's role in Space Jam 2 was going to be a cameo anyway. Okay, so here's the thing. Not Kevin Feige, this is going back several days now, but basically wrote in and say it's hypocritical that they took Pepe Le Pew out of Space Jam 2 while they still had the guys from Clockwork Orange, Rob, in a background in a cameo shot. And we talked about how that's a false comparison. You cannot compare the two different scenarios and situations, which led us down this rabbit hole of talking about how lots of kids' films or kid-targeted sort of stuff will often put in adult-themed Easter eggs that a kid won't get, but an adult watching it will and understand what that is. Plus, people misuse the word hypocrisy. I don't know if people understand the word hypocrisy anymore. Like, I often feel like... when Vincini, let's say, it's inconceivable, and then he says to him, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Right.
Hypocrisy is in a direct equivalent situation when you preach against one thing and yet do that one thing yourself. I mean, an overt, obvious one is like some televangelist talking about how evil gay people are, and then you find out he's got actually 5 boyfriends, stroking the log for him on the daily. That's hypocrisy, right? A direct comparison scenario of preaching against a direct thing and then doing that exact same thing that you're against. That's not this. We've already stopped the scenario of Pepe Le Pew and what a Easter egg in the background of a couple of guys from an old movie, these villainous characters, is not a direct comparison. And you are incorrect. Pepe was not going to be a cameo. Pepe actually had a direct speaking line and was going to engage with LeBron James and all that kind of stuff. One, it was a long time seen as a beloved children's character. One is an Easter egg in the background that I guarantee you none of the kids are even going to know who those characters are. So again, Kevin, no, this is not a comparable situation. It's a false equivalency and you cannot compare the two. And so no, it is not hypocritical. if it's not a direct one-to-one comparison of doing something you're completely against that's completely comparable, then it's not hypocrisy. These are two different situations. It's not hypocrisy. So that's the last we're going to talk about this. All right. Anyway, Tog writes, hey, John, the Alice in Wonderland sequel was released 6 years after the first film because they wanted to expand on it without changing too much from the first film. Do you think that the Aladdin sequel could do the same since it will have a new story? Listen, here's the thing. I don't buy that notion. Oh, we waited 6 years because it took us 6 years to do the story. I'm sorry. Cabin in the Woods had its screenplay written over the weekend, and it's a completely celebrated movie. I don't believe any of that. How long will it take them to do Aladdin? They can write a completely new story in a weekend if they wanted to. If they want to take their time, do it over 6 months or do it over however long. But I don't know how long it'll take them to do the sequel. I was still kind of surprised to find out they were doing one, but I'm happy they're doing it because I love that live action Aladdin. Not as much as the original animated one, but I really did love this live action Aladdin directed by Guy Ritchie. I thought he did a terrific job, even though I thought he was a weird choice to direct it at first. Anyway, so I don't know how long we're going to have to wait, but I don't think we're going to have to wait that long. I really don't. All right, next up. Josh writes, I think one piece of movie trivia that has ruined my movie-going experience is the villain equals no iPhone rule. I remember this. That being said, Sharon unfortunately was not using an iPhone, proving she is in fact the power broker, or at least bad. She is in fact the power broker, or at least bad. Again, that I don't know that we can go direct comparisons, Rob. Do you remember that whole thing when Rian Johnson talked about the Apple wasn't going to allow people to show the villains using an iPad or an iPhone? I don't know how strict that ever was, or if it was a unique circumstance. And then again, maybe the power broker is like a Dread Pirate Roberts sort of situation, a title that gets passed from person to person, and maybe they're not as bad as they let their reputation make them sound like they are. I mean, I don't know, but while I do think that Sharon is the most likely candidate, even though it's a bad option, I don't think the fact that she wasn't using an iPhone is proof that means she is the Dread Pirate Roberts of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about that?
I think that's probably correct. Although I do now, if it turns out to be that way, I'm never going to not think about her as being the Dread Pirate Roberts. I mean, I can't. I bought Elizabeth a great. It wasn't made by Hot Toys, but a really good Dread Pirate Roberts figure, and she has it on her desk. So I see the Dread Pirate Roberts every day when I walk out to do the shows here. So that's not something I'll ever forget now.
All right, let's do one more while we still got Rob here. This next one comes to us from Dom, who writes, I'm kind of feeling the characters in Falcon and Winter Soldier have tunnel vision with the dangers of super soldiers. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like the rest of the galaxy is a much scarier place. Aliens, magic, Thanos, Asgardians, Hulk, and so much more. Well, see, here's the thing though, Dom. That's like saying we're not worried about the guy up the street who just bought 5 assault rifles living in our neighborhood. When, hey, there are nuclear missiles and armies with tanks and long-range laser. Well, no, you still worry about this as a problem, especially with the history of the super soldier serum. So yeah, they don't want these guys just running around, people who get injected with this. Plus, it theoretically becomes something, Rob, that they can mass produce. It's something that they can mass produce. Like you can't just all of a sudden snap and have 50 Asgardians running around in your neighborhood. So I think they understand what the danger can be. You see the good that Captain America has done. The opposite can be done in the wrong hands, especially now that you got 7 or 8 of them running around and maybe more unless this is dealt with. So I don't think it's comparative threat. I think it's still just a threat. I don't know, Rob, how do you see that? How should they be looking in the MCU at the threat of the super soldiers running around?
Well, like you just said, I mean, it's all relative. Think about how, like, here on this planet, if you were to go to Syria, how dangerous Syria is. The country's been destroyed, torn by civil war. There's 100,000 troops in the Crimea Peninsula massing on Ukraine's border right now. You know, there's plenty of places on our own planet that are incredibly more dangerous than most of the neighborhoods that we're in. And yet we're not thinking about that. You know, I mean, it's still, Thanos already came to Earth and snapped half the population away, but you still have to deal with the reality of daily life that we have to get up and go to bed and still live in this world. And like you said, what if half the population was suddenly taking super soldier serum? What would that mean to the rest of us? It'd be kind of terrifying. And that would be something we'd have to deal with on an immediate basis, like right now. Whereas who knows what extraterrestrial threat, that might take years before it shows up on Earth, but you could have super soldiers on your doorstep tomorrow.
All right, Rob, we've taken you overtime again today, but thanks for being here, and thanks for getting that last question in, by the way. In the meantime, Rob, you got a lot of big stuff going on, but where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude, thanks a lot for being here. Have a good one, and I will talk to you again tomorrow, my friend. Have a good one.
All right, will do.
Guys, the great, the one and the only, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Of course, he'll be back on again tomorrow, but we still have some time here, guys. I'm going to take off my headphones since I don't need them anymore. They do get uncomfortable after a while. I guess all headphones do. Let's move on now with more of your questions, shall we? We're going to keep things going here. That was Dom, so let's move on up to Glenn Tracy. And Glenn Tracy writes, I love that secondhand cap. I like the secondhand cap. I love that secondhand cap wants to be a hero, but is flawed. He took the serum and killed someone the same day. We all know Zemo is a villain, but when the serum spills towards him, I thought for a second, will he? He stays so consistent and doesn't blink. No, and again, I don't think that says anything good about Zemo's character. It just reinforces Zemo's convictions, right? Convictions are not in and of themselves good things. Like Thanos had a conviction that I had to eliminate half of life in the universe. A conviction is neither good nor bad. A conviction can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. But I love that they kept Zemo to his conviction. And his conviction is this stuff is bad and should be eliminated. And he stayed true to that conviction. John Walker, I mean, we've never really been clear on what his convictions are. But remember, he says earlier in the show, hey, as long as we get the job done, they don't care how we do it, right? Remember he said that earlier in the series? So him thinking to get the job done, I just got my ass handed to me by these Dora Milaje. There weren't even super soldiers. I'm getting spit at. I'm getting rejected. I'm not getting the job done. And we know already that his conviction is, get the job done. Who cares how it's done? You just get the job done. And so he saw taking the serum as an avenue to getting the job done. That doesn't mean his conviction was right or wrong. It just means that was his conviction. So really, the Walker character was staying true to his conviction as well. So it's just good. But as you know, Dr. Erskine was always worried that the super soldier serum can only be in the best of the best character of man. Only Steve Rogers can be Captain America. And now we're going to see how that kind of devolves the John Walker character. It's going to be interesting to watch. All right, secondhand cap. I still love the way you put that, Glenn. All right, next up, we've got Dark Knight Rises, who writes, hey, John, I just saw and thoroughly enjoyed Russell Crowe in Unhinged. I still got to watch that. Not a great movie, but boy, in a film only 90 minutes, what he does with that material. Few actors have such raw authority and power at their disposal. Anything else upcoming for him? Well, I mean, we've got him coming up in Thor: Love and Thunder. We know that. It's probably a pretty small role, I'm guessing, but we know he's going to pop up in Thor: Love and Thunder. I still haven't. It is a crime that Russell Crowe is my all-time favorite actor, and I still haven't watched Unhinged. I just never got around to watching Unhinged, and I need to. And what you're saying, Dark Knight, is exactly what I've been hearing. That is, the movie's not great. Holy shit, Russell Crowe's amazing. That's what I keep hearing, and that's good enough for me, so I got to get around to watching that. All right. Next up, Carla Wilson writes, hey, John. You often discuss the highest grossing film rankings. While I agree it's an achievement in any era, do you not think rankings adjusted for inflation is a much fairer and more important accolade? If not, why? Yeah, Carla, this is a question that I've actually been sent about 100 times, and it's an understandable question. So the question often comes, hey, why don't because, you know, inflation changes, right? The value of the dollar changes over the decades. When we talk about the top grossing movies, should we not be taking into consideration inflation? It is a fair question. My answer to that has always been and stays Absolutely not. You absolutely do not take inflation into consideration. And I'll tell you why. Because while it is fair to point out that inflation is, let's call it an adjustable expectation, right? That it is an adjustable or a influx kind of variable. It's a variable. Inflation is a variable. What everybody then ignores is that, okay, but inflation is not the only variable. There are dozens of other variables, some of which are even more impactful than inflation is. And my whole thing is, if you want to take, you either got to take all the variables into consideration or you take none of them in and just go by the pure number. You can't just pick and choose one variable or two variables. You either got to take them all or take none. For example, inflation is a variable, the value of the dollar and what a certain dollar spent at the box office represents depending on the era that you're in. Is that a variable? Yes. But guess what else is a variable? The number of movies actually out. Every year, at least up until 2019, before the pandemic, we were on a streak of like 20 plus years in a row where more and more released movies into theatrical exhibition came out year after year after year after year. It used to be that you get like 2 movies come out on a weekend. By the time we got to 2019, we were hitting some weekends that would have 5 major releases. And that's only considering the North American market. So yeah, it's great if you were a movie in like 1979 and you had like maybe, 7 or 8 other films out there that you're competing with on a global market, giving a window. That's different than having to compete against 30 or 40. Every year, more and more, the number kept growing for like 20 plus consecutive years of the number of theatrically exhibited films. The competition level is just different. You cannot ignore that variable. Also, what about the variable of television? Up till a certain point, TVs weren't in every house in America. So movies prior to the advent of television had it much easier in some ways than after the advent of television. I mean, a lot of people thought when television came out that was it. Movies were going to be done. When TVs came out and everybody had on-screen entertainment in their home, the thought at the time was that movies are done. So movies that came out during the era of television had much harder and stiffer competition for entertainment dollars and entertainment time than movies that came out prior to the advent of television. That is a major variable. What about video games? Back in the 70s and to a degree in the 80s and stuff like that, movies didn't have to compete for disposable income entertainment dollars. Movies didn't have to compete against the multi-tens of billions of dollars video game industry. Where now a lot of kids are spending a large percentage of their disposable income on the newest, what's one I'm looking for? Whether it's the newest iteration of a Warcraft or some new iteration of the latest first-person shooter or whatever, and you're buying the new Xbox series, or you're buying the new PlayStation 5 or whatever. The competition for the disposable income dollars, which is what movies and video games both go after. They both go after disposable income dollars. The amount of time certain people playing video games, this is another level of competition that a different era of movies never had to compete against. And don't think for a second that that's not a major factor. It is absolutely a major factor. It is a huge, back to the V word, variable. Look, at the end of the day, what my point about inflation is inflation a significant variable? Absolutely. But it's just one of many significant variables. And you can't just pick and choose which variable you want to apply and then ignore all the other variables. So to me, while not a perfect solution, the most common sense solution is you just discard the variables. And you have to acknowledge that, look, every movie in every era faced its own set of unique challenges, competition, and obstacles that they have to overcome in order to be successful. And those obstacles that are in their way and those challenges that every era of film face will be different from era to era. It's not an apples to apples comparison. So no, I do not believe when considering all-time box office grosses that you should be considering inflation, because while inflation may favor one era of movie, that movie didn't have to face the other challenges that modern movies have to face. And so the only fair thing to do is just to ignore them altogether. It's not a perfect thing. The perfect thing would be to have a really good mathematical formula to truly break down everything, bringing all the variables into consideration, but that's not realistic. So you either take all the variables or you don't take any of them. I think the most level field way to do is to acknowledge that every era of movie has its own unique set of challenges that other eras didn't have to face, whether it's inflation, video games, television, the proliferation of streaming services, number of movies in theaters, whatever. Just go straight down the line. So anyway, that's my take on that. Thanks for writing in the question, Carl. I appreciate that. All right, next up. Wakanda Forever writes, what? WrestleMania is going to be on a rain delay? I didn't know that. A complete disaster, ruined my favorite night of the year. Peacock, is this what I signed up for? Total mess. Well, I mean, first of all, I never heard that WrestleMania was on a rain delay, but I'm pretty sure Peacock doesn't control the weather, brother. I'm pretty sure Peacock doesn't control the weather. It is what it is. They held WrestleMania in an outdoor stadium. If it rained, it rained. Again, I didn't even know about that, but if it rained, it rained. All right, King Kong Megatron writes, hey, John and Rob, greetings again from London. I hope you're both keeping well. I am one of the few who still buys physical media, as is Rob, Blu-rays. And I was wondering whether shows like Mandalorian or WandaVision will ever be released on Blu-ray. Thanks. Good question. Now, I believe I heard, although I've never seen anything to back this up, I thought, and maybe you guys in the live chat can help me with this. I believe I heard that Mandalorian was going to be released on Blu-ray, but I haven't seen any information that actually validated that information, but I believe I heard that. But even if they do that for Mandalorian, and even if they do that for WandaVision, it won't last long. Because again, the idea of Disney Plus is they make these shows to make you and I sign up for Disney Plus, right? So making these shows available on Blu-ray, they may do that right now just to ease people into the paradigm shift, but don't expect that to last for long. Because putting these things out on Blu-ray is actually counterproductive to what Disney Plus's end goal is, which is get people to sign up for Disney Plus on a subscription basis. So they may do it right now, but I have a feeling it won't be done for long. All physical media is dying. I mean, so it just is. That's not a preference. That's just a fact. It is. Rob talks about this all the time. But especially for these streaming services, don't expect it to last for long. But I do think you can right now. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I still think you can get it right now. Anyway, by the way, Mr. Wolfgang sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, Mr. Wolfgang. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up. We go to Wakanda Forever writes, wow, that image is ingrained in my brain for the rest of my life. Growing up, the most memorable image for me was Superman kneeling before Zod in Superman 2. What is the most memorable image of modern DCEU? Of modern DCEU? Huh. That's a good one. You know what? To me, when I think DCEU, my favorite image in my head isn't even from what I think is easily the best DCEU movie, which is Man of Steel. It's actually from Batman versus Superman. And it was actually in that one trailer. The image of Batman standing by his bat signal and looking up as the lightning flashes, and you see Batman, and you also see the silhouette of the Superman as the lightning flashes in the sky. Well, like, that is one hell of an image. That to me is one hell of an image. So I personally love that one a lot. That one stands out to me a lot. Okay. Next up, Wakanda writes, okay, John, I said I would write in to get your thoughts. Did you have a favorite match? Again, I didn't watch WrestleMania. I didn't have the opportunity. What do you think of WrestleRania? P.S. Now that things are reopening, live events, what are you most looking forward to attending in person? Now that things are starting to reopen and we're heading towards recovery, we're not there yet, but like right now, I wouldn't go to a concert venue. I wouldn't go to that. Not with people crowded around you. No, but the thing I am one of the things, and this may sound like a little thing, that I'm really most looking forward to getting back to is, and this is going to be specific, John Williams, the maestro of the movies concert that they do every year at the Hollywood Bowl. It's one of my favorite events every year that Ann and I do. Every year, John Williams does this big orchestral concert at the Hollywood Bowl called the Maestro of the Movies, where he plays all of his iconic movie music, and then he brings in other themes as well and plays music from other iconic movies as well. It's one of the best things ever. Obviously, can't do that today, hopefully soon, but that's the one thing that I'm really looking forward to doing and getting back to in a specific way once they open this stuff up again. I'm very, very excited about it, and I hope it's something we're going to be able to do really soon. All right. Next up, we've got Brazilian dude who writes, just read an article in Variety about Nobody. The writers say it's actually based on a true story. The real guy is, in fact, an effing nobody from Canada, as he puts it, who runs a movie YouTube channel, but kicks all sorts of ass. I wonder who it is. I mean, okay, so that aside, Nobody. Let's talk for a second about Bob Odenkirk and Nobody. Guys, I mean, yeah, the bigger, more fun one was probably Godzilla vs. Kong, but if you guys haven't seen Nobody and you have the opportunity to get to a theater to watch it, do go and watch it. It was ridiculous fun. I had such a good time, just ridiculous fun. Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd was fantastic in it. RZA pops up in it. Just a really, really fun. No Oscar winners coming out of this. It's not going to win any Oscars, but it's just a damn fun movie. So do check it out if you get a chance. All right, next up, Michael Bradley writes, hello, John. When you mentioned Sam Wilson is a diplomat, all I could think of was Kenneth Branagh in Tenet, good with fists for diplomat. Yeah, well, I mean, Sam is not literally a diplomat, but, you know, he counseled people, right? He knew how to work with people, particularly people in positions of war, right? And how to help them, right? So in that sense, he has the skills of a diplomat. And I thought they played that very beautifully in that one episode of Falcon Winter Soldier, where he finally got to get face to face with Carly. And you could see how skilled he was at this. How skilled he was at actually having a conversation with her and start to make her understand herself a little bit and kind of maybe talk her down until, of course, John Walker barged in and ruined everything. But yeah, it was really cool to see that side of Sam Wilson. I thought that was great. It's a unique ability he has that none of the other Avengers really have. Right? Like, he is probably better at that than any of the other Avengers could have been. So that was a really interesting thing to see. All right, next up, Wakanda Forever writes, everyone have a great day. Love you guys. Wakanda Forever. Thanks, man. It's always nice to hear a nice little message like that. Thanks for sending that in, dude. All right, Lisa writes, proud mom here. Always good to be a proud mom. Proud mom here, asking if you could give a shout out of congrats to my daughter Isabella, who just got accepted to Dawson College in Montreal. She's studying 3D animation and computer generated imagery. Her dream is to work for Disney Animation one day. Well, first of all, big shout out to Isabella for getting accepted into Dawson. Listen, this is a field that is only going to grow. More and more artists are going to be needed for stuff like that. The highly skilled people are always needed. So congrats on getting into that. I know that's not the easiest program to get into. And also congrats on having a mom who would want to give you a shout out like that. So Lisa, thanks for sending that in. Thanks for being a good mom, and congratulations to Isabella for that. I hope to see your name in the credits of a Disney or Pixar movie someday. That would be great to see. All right, next up, Robert By Her Annette writes, holy crap, that ending to Falcon and the Winter Soldier was probably the best ending I've seen Marvel do for anything they've ever produced. Wyatt Russell and Carly Skoglund are dynamite additions to this franchise. Yeah, listen, I know everybody, we all want to hate on the Walmart Captain America. I know when he showed up at the end of episode 1, I made fun of the face and the mask and Walmart Captain America. I am telling you, this is an amazing character. With all of his brokenness and mistakes and the good things about him turning into bad, this is a fascinating character. And they really put a spotlight on him in this last episode. I mean, just love him. Carly's another great character who has multiple dimensions. She's not a good guy or a bad guy. She's a girl who saw an injustice and wanted to do something about it, but it's driven her more and more to a darker place, to the point that she's blowing up buildings with civilians tied up inside. I mean, it's amazing how they've made these characters multidimensional, and I love what they're doing with them. Do it a lot. All right, next up, Double B Studios writes, "Hey, John, not going to guess what happens next episode. I love guessing what happens in the next episode, all that kind of stuff. Not going to guess what happens in the next episode. Just sitting back and eating what they bring to the table. After episode 4, the effects of the snap are inevitable. Thanos continues to win, plaguing everyone, no matter human or how powerful the character is. And yet, listen, this wasn't what Thanos's outcome wanted. So I don't know. I'd say that Thanos won, or this is Thanos winning. This is different from what his goals were, but still, we see what I am loving about the MCU right now is that they are making everything multi-layered, right? They are not ignoring massive things that happen. You know, they're not ignoring little things that happen here and there within the MCU. They have repercussions later on. You know, yay, the Hulk snapped everybody back. It's not just happily ever after. There are problems that will come with that. 3 billion people suddenly appearing in the world, a world that has had 5 years to adjust of having 3 billion less people around. All of a sudden now 3 billion more people appear. That's going to cause problems, right? That need to be dealt with. And the fact that they're doing everything on such a multi-layered level, I think speaks very well for them. All right. Last one we're going to do today here, guys, comes to us from Double B Studios, who writes in, one more thing. Feige sure chose the right people so far to direct episodes for shows and movies. I can see him doing X-Men stories outside of the Marvelverse, and every now and then have a multiverse movie maybe. I don't know. He always figures out something. Yeah, listen, that goes back, Double B, to what the reason I didn't want Disney to win the Fox bidding war was because I wanted X-Men to remain separate from the MCU. I still do. I still think the MCU is becoming way too overcrowded. I really do feel, I'm loving it. Don't get me wrong. I'm really enjoying it, but it's also becoming overcrowded. And I just think X-Men would be better served if they were in their own separate universe. That being said, you kind of nail it. I trust Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige has consistently shown that he knows what he's doing. And while I think the best thing to do is to keep them in a separate universe, I don't think that's what Kevin's going to do. And I just trust that Kevin will find a way to make it work. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult. And by the way, Black Bono Lala sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Black Bono. I appreciate that, man. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be tricky, but he will find a way because he's Kevin Feige and that's what he does. And everything he's touched turns to gold right now. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, if it were up to me, I'd keep the X-Men in a completely separate universe. It's just, this movie universe is getting far too overcrowded. And I don't think you can tell proper stories. But, you know, adding like 50 more characters like that come with X-Men, the MCU world is now already a world where on every single street corner, there's a superpowered being. I don't know. I worry about it. But again, complete trust in Kevin Feige. He will find a way to make it work. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for being here. For guys like Movie Edit, Double B, Steve Pintor, Dave the Rave, do not worry. We've got another companion video coming a little bit later today with me and Kimberly Curran. We are going to get actually all caught up on all the remaining questions. So make sure you guys check out our companion video a little bit later today. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. Thank you to all of you guys for spending some of your time with us here today. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in those live comments and question tips. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us here involved at the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Okay, guys, once again, tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the John Campea Show at 10 a.m. Don't forget to join us for that. But also don't forget, guys, that we are at 4 p.m. tomorrow. That's 4 p.m. Los Angeles time. That's 7 p.m. New York time. Tomorrow on Wednesday, we will be doing a live stream all about taking your questions and everything about getting a YouTube channel started, We'll talk gear, software, principles, philosophies. We'll talk about how it applies to if you just want to start a blog or a podcast, for example. So that's going to be tomorrow night. Make sure you guys come and join us if you have any interest in that sort of stuff at all. I've been getting a lot of requests from you guys, so that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Of course, the John Campea Show at 10 a.m. A little bit later today, me and Kimberly Curran with a companion video. Lots of stuff going on here, guys. We hope you'll come on back and join us for that. All right, guys, remember to do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.